Hey everyone, it's Joe Waxman, and I'm back with another video. This morning, I would like to look at the chart of renowned famous comedian Groucho Marx. I love Groucho Marx. I love the Marx Brothers. I used to watch a lot of their films. I think they're hilarious. And um, yeah, I just think he's one of the greatest comedians of all time. He set the bar super high for what's expected of comedians. And Yeah, I mean, I just love him. So I think it's definitely worth checking out his chart. He's brilliant character. Groucho Marx, October 2nd, 1890, 8:35 a.m., New York, New York. Okay. Scorpio ascendant, like me. Um, he's got a Libra sun conjunct Mercury. Mercury is retrograde. Did not seem to slow down his one-liners, his ability to deliver those amazing, quick comebacks, quick witty quips that he was famous for. Libra Sun. So Libra Sun is debilitated, which is interesting. It did not seem to. That also did not seem to slow him down or bother him very much. It did not make him. Well, I think that it helped him probably because his Venus ruled and his Venus is in the first house, and so it gave him this very kind of nice personality that was you know very smart and intellectual but witty at the same time, because Mercury is here too. So we have a combination of Mercury and Venus influencing the sun, and Mercury and Venus are very artistic, literary, intellectual, but in a very refined way. When you combine the two, uh, Mercury conjunct the sun is very quick-minded, very active-minded. So we see that. That's very telling of his whole personality. The just way that he was just like quick, such a quick mind. And Mercury is a very intellectual planet, and so is Libra. So Mercury does fine in Libra. I mean, it's neither, it's neutral, but it does good. There it is combust. It's what we would consider combust, this Mercury, but that probably I don't think combust is all bad. I mean, I have Venus combust the sun, but I think it depends on the person and how they use it. Definitely Mercury conjunct the sun, even if it's combust, it just makes like a super fast mercurial kind of mind. 12th house is for creativity and the comedy, acting, all that is very creative. The 12th house is also for film because illusion, delusion, fantasy, all that. He got his start with his brothers. They were always a team. They were real brothers, Jewish family from New York. They got their start. Actually, they started singing initially, the Marx Brothers, and then they started. They would crack jokes in between, and then they realized that their jokes were better than their singing, so they went on to become a comedy routine in vaudeville. I guess that's some sort of, I don't even know. I mean, that's like some old timey stage thing in New York, I guess. So they were on stage, but a long time before they made their first movies. They became popular in New York on the stage scene, doing live performance, and that's where they really refined their routine. Yeah, interesting stuff. Yeah, so Libra, all right. Moon is in Gemini, and I mean, there's this obvious grand trine here, which is just so great. This grand air trine. Moon's in Gemini, conjunct Neptune and Pluto. Then the North Node's a little further out, but I mean, first of all, Moon in Gemini is just so quick and witty. That we're getting that mercurial influence on the sun and the moon, right? Just like super witty, super intellectual. Gemini is often very funny. I mean, the two funniest signs usually are Gemini and Aquarius. And he has both those. We'll get to this Jupiter. But Gemini is hilarious. Moon and Gemini is like just crazy. Like it's just like the emotions are all over the place. They're just nutty. They're just bouncing back and forth in their mind. Conjunct Neptune. Neptune is the co-ruler of Pisces. It represents fantasy, illusion, creativity, arts. Yeah, so it's making his mind, his inner mind, even more just nutty, creative, crazy, like just wild. And like Pluto's there. I mean, this is a very, very long Pluto Neptune conjunction. I mean, this is a very long cycle. I mean, right now Pluto's here and Neptune's here. That's within the same cycle, and that was in 1890. So that's over 100 years. And we won't have the next conjunction of Pluto and Neptune for a long time. I don't even know when. It's going to be hundreds of years. But you can see just how far they've gone from the conjunction. Neptune is only separated to the sextile, basically. So that, I think that was around the time of the Industrial Revolution. I'm not a history buff, but I think cars were developed around that time and became popular soon after. A long time ago. Anyway, Moon conjunct Neptune and Pluto is very intense, very powerful in Gemini. And it's just giving him a lot of deep, powerful Geminian creativity to his moon. Making him very intense and deep, like just this power. It's not just Neptune, it's Pluto driving Neptune into the moon, which is creating like this very just like this deep kind of intellect that is communicating with the sun and the Mercury, and then this Jupiter. And just to give it some context, all right, so that we got this grand trine here, very tight actually, because 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, the degrees are very tight, and then the sun is 2 degrees from Pluto, 3 degrees from Neptune. So this is and then Chiron. So we got a full kite here, 2 degrees, 2 degrees. But Jupiter and Aquarius, we see that often actually with comedians. Jupiter is a planet. Jupiter is a very funny planet, believe it or not. And Jupiter in Aquarius is very funny. Yeah, that's very common. But not only that, I mean, might as well just show you guys. Is Jupiter stationary? I mean, that is classic. That and his trine are the grand trine. This Jupiter's, I mean, all three of these corners of the air trine are just, making him like a comedic genius. But this Jupiter is just amazing because it's stationary, and stationary planets are just so powerful. The intensity, the power is magnified whenever you have a stationary planet. It's in the third house of expression. That's Gemini's original house. This is such a powerful, funny Jupiter, and it's trining the moon and the sun and Mercury and Neptune and Pluto, right? And opposite Chiron. Yeah, this is classic. This is such a great combination for being like just a comedic genius. And that's what he was. Just Jupiter expands everything, and it's positive, and it's benefic and generous, and it's just like indulgent, and it's just all the good things, happiness, and in Aquarius can be such an absurd sign. And it's hilarious because in that way, when Jupiter or Mercury or Venus come in contact with Aquarius, there can be just hilarity naturally ensues because of just like the weird absurdity of Aquarius, and then the Jupiterian positive expansion, right? It's just very common with comics, with comedians. Not the only combination. Like I said, like Gemini often is very much involved too, and he has all 3 air signs. So his mind was just like super airy, super fast, and just quick-witted as can be. So while we're here, out of bounds, Mars is out of bounds. So let's look at that. I mean, so Mars is a very significant planet for him because he's a Scorpio ascendant. Mars is his ascendant ruler along with Pluto. But Mars is more the physical one. We look to Mars first for like being the physical representation of his self. It's in the second house in Capricorn. It's exalted, right? His ascendant lord is exalted. That's very powerful in Capricorn. Mars in Capricorn in the second house, moving into the third house because third house cusp is in Capricorn. So voice, and it's also influencing the third house of expression where Jupiter is. Jupiter's in the third house, right? So the voice, he's moving into his voice, his speaking. So he knew, like, from an early age, he wanted to involve his voice. He thought he was going to be a singer. Then he realized he could tell jokes, so he did that. But he wanted to be speaking, right? His ascendant lord is going into his second house, moving into the third, and it's exalted. He could do it, right? It's exalted. It's powerful. It's strong. It's controlled. Not only that, it's square the sun and Mercury. Okay, and Mars to Mercury is snappy. It's fast. If you know anyone with a Mars Mercury aspect, they're argumentative. They're quick-witted. They're quick. Mars is speeding up his mind even more. Even though it's a square, it's not bad, especially with Mars in Capricorn, because that's such a controlled sign. Like Mars really gains a lot of strength because it's controlled in Capricorn. Capricorn is controlling it, honing it. It's, when you have something controlled, when you have a bullet is not dangerous unless it's controlled and like fired at a high speed out of a barrel, that's where it becomes dangerous. So Mars without any control is just like, energy expanding like everywhere. It's not really directed. When it's in Capricorn, it's directed, it's pointed. That's where it becomes really sharp and focused, and it can either, in a good or for good or bad, right? It can just, but that's where it really becomes strong. So here, the strength of Mars is directed right at this debilitated sun and Mercury. Actually, this really helps the sun because sun is exalted in Aries. So here we're bringing in the strength of Aries, the planet, the sign of exaltation, to the sun. Mars and the sun do well together. And this square is not really a problem for such a controlled, exalted Mars, because Capricorn, Mars, Saturn, they do well with squares because they can just make good use of it, like a good Saturn or a good, in this case, a good Mars, because it's exalted in Capricorn, Saturn's sign. It's making good use of the square, and this is giving him, that's that bullet. That's why he's like, you say anything to Groucho Marx, he's gonna bullet you back with those one-liners. Just like, that's this. I mean, the Venus, just the sun in Libra and Mercury in Libra, that just makes it nice. That's like the humor. That's the nice delivery. He even said he can't actually insult anyone, because every time he says anything that's like an insult, people just laugh because they think he's joking. That's a lot to do with it. That's the sun and Venus. Sun and Venus is very nice, right? Sun and Venus. Sun in Libra. It's very nice. If you know anyone with a sun in Libra, they're so nice people, but they don't stand up for themselves, and they're a little too mushy, and they can cave in, right? They're people pleasers. They can cave in to others easily. They can sometimes distort the truth for the sake of peace. That's an intellect, that's an air quality of just being able to show a different perspective to gain advantage, right? But with this Mars square the sun is really helping out that aspect out a lot. The 12th house is the sun and Mercury are disposited by Venus. Venus is in Scorpio in the first house. And this has a lot to do with his looks. I mean, if it was Scorpio alone, it would have been just much darker, and it wouldn't have come off nearly as humorous as it does. But the Venus in the first house really gives it that that quirky, funny look. I mean, he had the thick eyebrows and the thick mustache that was like greased on there, and like the glasses, and he had that weird look, hunched over. That's the Venus in Scorpio, because Venus is beauty, right? But it doesn't do that great in Scorpio. But with this humor, it just came off. Like, because he was playing like this funny role, it just came off like brilliant combination, like classic. Like, you can go to any Halloween shop and find the Groucho eyebrows and glasses and nose and mustache, and it's classic look, right? That's the Venus and Scorpio in the first house. Amazing, really. Amazing combination. I don't know how Pallas Athena relates to it. Pallas Athena is it's an asteroid, and it's more of a, when it's conjunct Mercury or the ascendant, then it gives more of an intellectual kind of component. It helps out Mercury a lot. I have a conjunct Mercury. It's really good for Mercury. What else? So third and fourth ruler Saturn is in Virgo in the 10th house. I think this is bringing him, 10th house is a house of fame and recognition. It's pretty much conjuncting the 11th house. So it's also delaying his career success. He really did not, all the Marx brothers, he did not have success actually until he was in his 40s. Well, he did, let me rephrase that. They had stage success, but not in movies till he was in his 40s. And that's when the North Node became activated. And I think the Saturn was slowing down his success. It was at the same time bringing him to success, because fourth house rules early childhood. And even at a young, as a teenager, he was on stage performing, but Saturn was slowing it down at the same time. So there was very mild. It took a long time for him to gain success on stage, even though he started young, working very hard at it, always performing. The success did not come till later, and that's third and fourth house in the 10th, 11th in Virgo. Yeah. The Saturn is square Pluto and Neptune, more Pluto than Neptune. That's actually a very intense combination. Very driven, very serious. People with Saturn, Pluto contacts are just workaholics, essentially. Saturn's hard work, Pluto's obsession. They just become overly serious about their work when it's in conjunction or the square, because squares just make you work hard too. So the square is no less, challenging or difficult than the conjunction. But squares between Gemini and Virgo have an okay quality, because they're both mutable. It's not like a fixed square, which can be so stubborn. And they're both Mercury ruled. They're both mutable and they're both Mercury ruled. So it's not as bad as it could be if it was like, Scorpio and Leo, or, Scorpio and Aquarius, something like that. Taurus and any of the fixed squares are much more, or even cardinal squares. I think the mutable squares are the easiest to navigate, because they're the most flexible, adaptable. That's their nature. But anyway, he was very serious and hardworking and responsible, and he took all his work, very seriously, right? What else? Jupiter is opposite Chiron. I think Chiron here is because he had like such a humorous, comedic demeanor. This Chiron is utilizing that side of things as well, because Chiron's the reject, the wounded healer. So he was using the Chiron in a way that was adding to the humor, by being somewhat of a reject, by using that Chironic reject to his advantage. Like he was not playing like a it was, you know, there was a lot of absurdity, and you know, that's Aquarian. But the Chiron, I'm trying to put it into words, not doing the best job. Yeah, it was that rejection quality. Chiron was a centaur, and he was rejected by his mother. So there's like the absurdity that he's using to his advantage. It is in Leo. Leo's very creative sign. It's the ninth house, so it's very prominent in the sky. So yeah, I mean, I just think that that was adding to his whole shtick, you know, just being like this oddball, crazy, like absurd character. And yeah, I think I said Mars is out of bounds, so that's his ascendant lord. So out of bounds planets just take things to extreme. They just go further than the norm would have it. So his whole character, his whole persona was just like extreme because Mars is out of bounds. So it's just out, it's all adding. Let's see, North Node, South Node. So he didn't become famous in the movies till he was 40, I think 40. So that's right around the time when North Node was activated. So the North Node is in Gemini in the 8th house. And I really just think it was activating Gemini with his moon. He needed the Gemini activation in order to really fully round out his character, because you know of this trine, you know, this air trine with this you know, amazing Jupiter and Aquarius in the 3rd house that's stationary, and then the Gemini moon conjunct this you know, once in a lifetime conjunction of Pluto and Neptune, which is like driving this deep creativity home into his moon and his mind. And then the North Node in Gemini is just furthering that, just crazy Gemini, you know, just all over the place, wackiness. This grand trine is super powerful, kite really. And then Uranus is in the 12th house in Libra. Uranus in the 12th house is just like, people with Uranus in the 12th house can just have really absurd, radical ideas and motivation. And it's just playing into the whole thing. It's just furthering his whole crazy character, just like Groucho Marx. I mean, he's I mean, to say that he's one of a kind is not doing him justice. He's Groucho Marx. He's an icon. He's a legend. He's just completely unto himself. There will never be anything like him. I mean, and that's just Uranus in Libra is just furthering that whole thing. I don't think it's, you know, directly pointing to anything. I don't know what kind of absurd beliefs he had or motivations or radical. He was radical in his whole character. His whole character was just radical. He was just completely radical. That's Uranus in the 12th house. What else? I think I touched on everything. Venus is ruling the 7th house. That's great for fame, recognition. Sun's ruling the 10th house, cusp, in the 12th house, creativity, film, you know, fantasy, delusion, artistry, 10th house, career. Mars ruling the 6th house and the 2nd house. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Scorpio always has conflict dealing with it. I mean, that's just natural for Scorpio. It's always bringing in some sort of conflict. But like I said, he was a master of deflection because he was just so funny that even if he insulted somebody, they would just laugh at him, think he was a joke. So I think it was, you know, because it's exalted, it's in great dignity. It really wasn't a problem for him. Mercury's ruling the 8th house. I don't know how that played out. I mean, I read his Wikipedia. It did not say anything about, you know, difficulties in his life, challenges, deaths, anything like that. So I'm not really sure, you know, how this played out. The 8th house influence. Maybe he was, you know, I don't know. Maybe he was into the occult or secrets or hidden things, or I don't know. I'd have to read his biography to really understand how that played out. But anyway, I think that's enough. This grand trine and this Jupiter and the Gemini placements, Mars, it all fits together. It's amazing. It really paints his character as a comedic genius. So yeah, that's it for now, guys. Groucho Marx, what a legend. So don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share if you enjoy this content. And if you want to book a reading, go to my website, macroastrology.com. I will be back soon with another video. So see you guys. Bye. All right, thanks.